Flying used to feel like the start of an adventure. Now, for a lot of travelers, it feels more like a gamble. You pick the wrong airline, and a simple delay turns into a lost day. Extra fees appear out of nowhere, and your cheap ticket suddenly costs more than your patience can handle. But here's the part most people don't realize. Not all airlines play the same game. Some are built like nightmare ticket machines, squeezing every dollar while giving almost nothing back. And then there are a few, just a handful, that somehow still make flying feel smooth, calm, and even enjoyable. This video isn't about brand loyalty or flashy marketing. It's about what actually happens when real people fly. Which airlines quietly drain your time and energy, and which ones are genuinely worth your money. If you've ever wondered why two flights at the same price can feel completely different, you're about to find out. Stay with me, because by the end of this list, you'll think very differently about how you choose your next airline. Ultra-low-cost airlines sell a simple promise, the cheapest fare on the screen. And at first glance, it works. You see that price and think, why would I pay more? But this is where the trouble starts. With carriers like Spirit and Frontier, that rock-bottom fare is just the entry fee. The moment you add a carry-on, pick a seat, or even want to sit next to the person you booked with, the total jumps fast. What looked like a bargain quietly turns into a math problem you didn't agree to solve. Passenger frustration around these airlines shows up again and again in local and national reporting. Fox 9 Minneapolis-St. Paul has highlighted patterns travelers complain about most: strict bag sizing, surprise charges at the gate, and limited help when things go wrong. When a delay hits, there's often very little cushion. Miss one connection, and your entire day can unravel. To be fair, some people swear by these airlines, especially if they travel light and expect nothing extra. But for most travelers, the experience feels tense from boarding to landing. You're constantly checking rules, measuring bags, and hoping nothing changes. And here's the twist. As bad as this sounds, these ultra-budget airlines aren't the ones that frustrate passengers the most. But wait until you hear which major airline actually outranks them. So, why do these airlines spark so much anger, even when travelers know they're booking cheap? Honestly, it comes down to psychology, not just price. Most people really don't mind paying less if the trade-offs are honest. The problem starts when costs stack up in pieces. A few dollars for a seat, more for a bag, another fee at the gate. By the time you board, it no longer feels like a low fare. It feels like a trap. That sense of being nickel and dimed is what pushes frustration over the edge. Then there's the physical experience. Tight seats, limited legroom, and cabins designed to squeeze in as many rows as possible. Even short flights can feel longer than they should, especially when you're already irritated about fees. But the biggest trigger is what happens when something goes wrong. Delays, crew timeouts, missed connections, every airline deals with them. Ultra-low-cost carriers just have less flexibility to recover. Fewer flights, fewer backup crews, and minimal customer support means small problems snowball fast. Passenger sentiment reflects this clearly. Many travelers say they don't hate the price, they hate the uncertainty. Not knowing what you'll be charged next, or whether anyone will help if plans change, well, that creates constant stress. And once that stress sets in, even a cheap ticket doesn't feel like a win. But oddly enough, the airlines that frustrate people even more aren't always the cheapest ones. American Airlines shows why size alone doesn't guarantee a better experience. On paper, it looks unbeatable. A massive network, hubs everywhere, endless route options. But for many passengers, that scale has become part of the problem. Industry analysis and traveler reporting, including coverage from Airways magazine, point to a consistent theme: operational strain. When everything runs perfectly, American can feel fine. But when the system gets stressed, delays ripple fast, communication breaks down, and recovery feels slow. Miss one connection, and suddenly there are very few good options left. What frustrates passengers most isn't one bad flight, it's inconsistency. One trip might be smooth with a friendly crew and a clean cabin. The next feels rushed, crowded, and purely transactional. That unpredictability wears people down, especially frequent flyers who remember when the airline stood for something more. Complaints often circle the same issues: tight cabins on short-haul routes, limited flexibility when plans change, and customer support that feels harder to reach when you need it most. The experience isn't terrible, it's just uneven, and that's where the disappointment hits hardest. Expectations are higher for a legacy carrier. When a major airline feels less dependable than expected, the frustration cuts deeper, and it gets weirder when a so-called budget airline starts to feel more predictable than this. United Airlines sits in a strange middle ground. It's not the worst, but it's also not the reliable standard many travelers hope for, and that split reputation is exactly what defines it. Some passengers genuinely praise United, especially on long-haul routes. Newer aircraft, upgraded business-class cabins, and improved lounges have earned real compliments. When everything lines up, the right plane, the right crew, the right day, the experience can feel polished and even premium. But that's the catch. According to industry commentary and traveler analysis from outlets like Airways magazine, the United experience often depends on variables passengers can't control. Aircraft swaps, crowded hubs, crews stretched thin by tight schedules. One flight feels calm and professional. The next feels rushed, tense, and underwhelming. Economy travelers in particular report tighter seating and service that swings from friendly to mechanical. And when delays hit, communication can feel uneven. Some travelers get clear updates. Others are left refreshing apps and gate screens, hoping for clarity that never quite arrives. United isn't failing across the board. It's rebuilding in pieces. But until that consistency locks in, many passengers approach the airline with cautious expectations rather than confidence. So if the biggest US brands can still disappoint this often, the real question becomes obvious. Who actually wins when it comes to flying well? Not every airline sits at the extremes. Some don't inspire horror stories or jaw-dropping luxury either. Instead, they land in a middle space that many travelers quietly appreciate. Airlines like Delta, JetBlue, and Southwest often fall into this safe pick category. According to passenger satisfaction studies from J.D. Power, these carriers consistently score higher for reliability, communication, and overall experience than much of the pack. You're not booking them for glamour. You're booking them to reduce stress. Delta earns praise for smoother operations and a system that usually feels under control, even when weather or delays creep in. JetBlue stands out for seat comfort, free Wi-Fi, and an onboard vibe that feels more relaxed than most. Southwest keeps things simple with flexible policies that remove some of the anxiety around changes in baggage. That said, mid-tier comfort has limits. Seats are better, but not spacious. Service is friendly, but not personalized. Lounges, if available, are functional rather than impressive. These airlines aim for consistency, not indulgence. For many people, that's exactly the point. You arrive rested enough and only mildly annoyed, if at all. But once you've experienced true top-tier airlines, this middle ground starts to feel like a compromise. And that raises the next question. What does genuinely great flying actually look like? Before we talk about the airlines that truly stand out, it helps to understand what good service actually feels like in the air. It's not about champagne or flashy cabins. It's about trust. According to passenger satisfaction research from J.D. Power, travelers consistently value the same core things. Clear communication when plans change, staff who feel present, not rushed, cabins that are clean, comfortable, and thoughtfully laid out. And most of all, reliability, the sense that the airline has a plan when something goes wrong. Good service lowers your stress without you even noticing. Boarding feels organized. Announcements are calm and useful. Small delays don't spiral into chaos because crews know what to do and passengers know what to expect. You're not constantly checking your phone or bracing for bad news. Comfort matters too, but not in the way ads suggest. It's legroom that doesn't feel punishing, lighting that doesn't exhaust you, a seat that lets you relax instead of fidget for hours. These details quietly shape how you remember a flight. And then there's the human side. When staff seem confident and genuinely helpful, passengers relax. When they don't, tension spreads fast. Here's where flying starts to feel pleasant again. Not exciting, not luxurious, just calm and predictable in the best way. And a few airlines have figured out how to deliver exactly that. When people talk about airlines that made flying feel exciting again, Emirates is almost always part of the conversation. And it didn't earn that reputation by accident. From the moment you step on board, the experience feels deliberately designed. Emirates is known for its industry-leading in-flight entertainment, with massive content libraries, large high-resolution screens, and live TV on many routes. Even in economy, the cabin feels thoughtfully arranged, with better lighting and more breathing room than most competitors. Service plays a big role too. Crews are trained to deliver calm, professional hospitality that feels polished without being stiff. You're offered meals that resemble real dining, not just reheated trays, and small details, like hot towels and neatly presented menus, signal that someone cared about the experience. Where Emirates really separates itself is in its premium cabins. Business class offers true lie-flat seats and lounge access, while first class, especially on the A380, feels almost unreal. Private suites, closing doors, and even onboard showers have become part of aviation legend. That said, expectations should be realistic. Emirates often costs more, and its hub-and-spoke routing through Dubai isn't for everyone. But if you want the journey to feel like part of the trip, this is where global flying starts to feel special. Just behind the very top tier sits another Middle Eastern powerhouse that travelers often debate, Etihad or Qatar Airways. Which one edges ahead can depend on the route, the aircraft, and personal taste, but both share a reputation for consistency that many airlines struggle to match. These carriers focus on making long-haul travel feel controlled and unhurried. Cabins are quiet, lighting is soft, seats in business class are designed for real rest, not just reclining. Even in economy, the experience feels carefully managed rather than crowded or chaotic. Dining is a major strength. Meals are paced properly, presented with care, and offer a mix of international and regional flavors that actually taste intentional. This isn't food rushed out of a galley. It's closer to restaurant-style service at altitude, especially in premium cabins. Premium perks extend beyond the seat. Lounges in Abu Dhabi or Doha are spacious, clean, and thoughtfully laid out, making long connections feel less like waiting and more like pausing. Shower suites, quiet zones, and attentive staff help reset your energy mid-journey. There are trade-offs. Smaller networks can mean fewer schedule options, and some older aircraft don't fully match the brand promise. But when you choose the right route and plane, Etihad or Qatar delivers the kind of smooth, predictable quality that turns a long flight into something you don't dread. At this level, flying stops feeling like a transaction and starts feeling carefully curated. Airlines like Cathay Pacific and ANA are often held up as examples of how quiet excellence can completely change the experience. What stands out first is polish. Cabins are spotless, boarding flows smoothly, announcements are clear and unhurried, nothing feels rushed and nothing feels improvised. The entire journey carries a sense of control that immediately puts passengers at ease. Hospitality is where these airlines truly shine. Service is attentive without being intrusive. Crew members seem to anticipate needs rather than react to problems. Meals are thoughtfully prepared, balancing comfort and quality, and served with a level of care that feels personal rather than scripted. The calm continues in the details: softer lighting, clean, well-maintained restrooms, seats that feel designed for long-haul comfort instead of maximum density. Even in economy, the experience feels respectful of the passenger's space and time. What makes Cathay Pacific and ANA special isn't flash or excess, it's consistency. You know what you're getting, flight after flight. That reliability builds trust, especially on long international routes where small stresses add up quickly. When travelers talk about airlines, they actively look forward to flying. These names come up again and again. And yet there's still one carrier that manages to set the bar even higher. At the very top of the list sits an airline that rarely sparks debate. Singapore Airlines has spent decades doing something incredibly difficult in aviation, delivering excellence consistently, flight after flight, year after year. What separates Singapore Airlines isn't one flashy feature. It's a philosophy. Service here feels effortless, almost invisible. Crew members appear exactly when you need them and fade away when you don't. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels forced. That calm rhythm is intentional, and passengers feel it the moment they step on board. Dining is another standout. Menus are developed with international culinary experts, meals are plated with care, and flavors are balanced for altitude rather than convenience. Even in economy, food feels thoughtfully prepared, not like an afterthought. This consistency is why Singapore Airlines continues to dominate global rankings and win industry awards, including repeated recognition in European and international travel reporting, such as coverage highlighted by Euronews. These aren't one-off good flights. They're the result of a system built around precision, training, and respect for the passenger. Seats are comfortable. Cabins are immaculate. Communication is clear. Delays, when they happen, are handled calmly and transparently. This is the carrier that still makes flying feel like flying, Not stressful, not exhausting, but quietly enjoyable. And that's why, for many travelers, Singapore Airlines remains the gold standard in the sky. So here's the big picture. Some airlines are best avoided unless, price is the only thing that matters. Others sit in the middle, acceptable, predictable, and good enough when you just want to get there without extra stress. And then there are a few that truly excel, turning flying into something calm, comfortable, and even enjoyable. The difference isn't always the ticket price. It's really how an airline handles your time, your comfort, and your trust when things don't go perfectly. Once you've experienced that higher standard, honestly, it's hard to go back. Now I'm curious, what airline surprised you the most on this list? Was there one you expected to see higher, or maybe one you think doesn't belong at all? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight helps other travelers make smarter choices. If this breakdown helped you fly smarter, go ahead and tap the like button and subscribe.